October 30th was just like any other day at work. I had come into work early. I was sitting on my desk by 6:30, and I was on a conference call, and I noticed that something just did not feel right. I laid my head down on the desk for a second because I felt real dizzy. And the next thing I woke up in the ED, surrounded by my coworkers, and the first thing I said was, "What happened? Have you notified my wife?" The things I kept hearing in the background from the providers was, "He's back, he's alive." That was the scary part about it, because I knew enough from my medical experience something had happened where I had not been able to recall any of the events after I laid my head down on the desk. When Dr. Lapolis came up, I immediately said, "Hey, tell me what's going on. Let me help. I'm a tier 1 provider. I'm there to help people." And he said, "Keith, you've had a serious event, and we need to get you up to cath lab as soon as possible." And that started me thinking that something bad had really happened to me. They immediately took me up to cath lab, did a cath, talked to all my friends that I knew in the cath lab about what was going on, and they said, "Keith, we know you have lots of questions about what's going on, but we're here to take care of you this time around." So I let them do their thing, and I got back to CCU that afternoon and spent the night in the hospital. Thought I was going to go home the next day, and they'd sent me out for some tests. I came back upstairs and had another event. The things I remember about that event were the whole cath lab staff came running down. Dr. Russo and Craig, they were all dressed up in their leads still. They were finishing up a case, and they showed up to assess my situation. At that point in time, they gave me some more medications and said, your condition is very serious, Keith. We need to get you on a helicopter to get you downtown. If I had not been at NorthCrest that day, I would not have survived this event. So I want to say thank you, NorthCrest. Every day that I'm alive, I'm happy now. I always try to have a happy smile on my face and greet everyone, knowing that I'm part of something bigger than myself. I'm part of a family here at NorthCrest.
My name is William Ronald Watts, but everybody don't know me by that name, so I go by Ronnie Watts. I'm just an old farm boy that live in Pleasant View, Tennessee. One day I went to the garden and I had a wasp sting me on my toe, and I was barefooted, and it was muddy. Well, my toe got infected. And everybody told me, said, "Ronnie, you just really don't need to go to NorthCrest Hospital." I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, I've heard that, it's kind of not up to date and all this stuff." So I said, "Well, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to NorthCrest Hospital." They looked at my toe and they said, "Ronnie," said, "it's got to come off." I said, "Oh, my Lord." And so Dr. Davis done the operation and everything on my toe, and it worked out fine. But I had infection in it. I thought I'd never get it to heal. But Jeannie took over in wound care, and it was a great decision on my part to have her, because she's a great, great nurse. She followed me through the whole thing, cut and wrapped, and her nurses were great. They were just great people. I don't call them nurses, I call them my sister. I spent 8 weeks in the hyperbaric chamber, 2 hours a day, every day except Saturday and Sunday, to put pure oxygen in your blood system. And my toe started to heal. It started to heal. Jeannie kept working with me, and finally she said, "I think we've saved your other toe." Well, that made me very happy, because I didn't know what I'd do without my other toe. And they were just great, and I thank each and every one of them for taking care of me.
Today was May 5th, 2019. Rebecca oftentimes would go to church with me because I have two little boys. She texted me and told me that she didn't feel well and that she wasn't going to go to church. I got a call during that time from my father, and he told me that Rebecca wasn't feeling well. I was on speakerphone, and when I talked to her, I said, "Oh, Beck, do you think it's a pulmonary embolism?" She had broken her foot on Easter, so a few days before. But when I asked her that day, "Do you think it's a pulmonary embolism?" she said, "I'm afraid so. I'm having trouble breathing." So I told my father to hang up the phone and to dial 911. We live pretty far out. We live up on the Kentucky line, so I knew that it would take time for EMS to arrive. So I told him that I was going to hang up and I was on my way. And in a minute, Daddy called me from the house phone and told me that he no longer was able to talk with her, that she wasn't responding back to him. So I told him that when she stopped breathing, because I anticipated she would, that I would tell him how to do CPR. My mom, my sister, Rebecca, and myself are all nurses. My baby sister's an embalmer. And so we're all CPR trained. My father never took a CPR class. So I knew that I'd need to provide him instructions on how to do that. In a minute, he told me that she wasn't breathing anymore, so I instructed him to lay her down, and I told him how to do CPR. I was on the phone with Daddy. I told him, I said, "Make sure that you have the back door open," and he said that he did, and he began CPR, and in a minute I heard him say, "We're up here," and so I knew that EMS had arrived. I hope that she heard that I was coming to her, and I hope that she heard that Daddy had called 911 just to provide her with some reassurance. But I think at the end of the day, she knew, and so did I, that this was potentially a fatal condition. When I got there, it's 12 miles between my house and Daddy's. When I got there, I could see that they were doing a good job, but I'm a nurse by trade, and so I needed report. So I came in and I told them, I said, "I'm Marissa Limley, and I'm a nurse, and this is my sister, and I need report." I said, "I also need to make sure that everybody's in roles they feel comfortable with and everybody feels fresh." And so one of the paramedics looked at me and she said, "Tell me your name again." And I said, "I'm Marissa Limley, and this is my sister." And she said, "That means this is Rebecca Limley." And I said, "Yes, it is." And she said, "I know her." And that was probably one of the common themes throughout our experience on this day, was that people had known her from the work that she had done through Vanderbilt in her outreach education. EMS, they were wonderful. They kept me informed along the way. Robertson County Sheriff's Department came in and he got report. You know, when we were standing in the kitchen, my daddy asked me, he said, "Do you think she's going to die?" And I told him, I said, "I do." I said, "I do think she's going to die." I said, "Unless there's divine intervention." "I'm afraid so, Daddy." And I said, "I'm so sorry." So we arrive at NorthCrest, and we have a long history with the county hospital. My great-grandmother was a nurse. She became a nurse after her husband died in 1952. She worked at the Robertson County Hospital and then transferred over to Jesse Holman Jones. My mother worked at Jesse Holman Jones and transferred when the new hospital was built at NorthCrest. I did clinical time at NorthCrest. I was a candy striper at Jesse Holman Jones. So people that greeted us in the emergency room were members of my community and members that of the team that I had known professionally for years. And so they allowed me to stand outside the trauma bay. I was able to give report, which was nice when I got to a place where I could communicate with the team and tell them what I knew. I was so thankful that Dr. Anani was able to give me lab results and EKG strips, and you know, I needed that. I knew that they were doing absolutely everything, but it was nice to feel like I was part of the team. They really valued the information that I had. One of my favorite things, I think, about the experience was how they continued to talk to Rebecca, not like she was a patient or just an object or a project that they were working on, but that she was a person. And so I could hear the communication with the team as they were telling her what was happening next and what they were going to do. And so I was thankful for the NorthCrest team because they stepped up and helped me to critically think in a time when it's really hard to critically think. So they helped me to make decisions, and they helped me to think through processes to be able to determine what our next steps should be. I was struck by the emergency room team came out of the trauma bay and walked me to the back door, me and my family. They provided us with comforting words. You know, I congratulated them on how well they worked as a team and how tight their communication was. I was thankful that I knew that they had done absolutely everything possible. When they walked us out to the door, they hugged us and they wished us the best. Many of them told us that they would pray for the best possible outcome. We wound up taking Rebecca off of life support at 10:30 that night because we knew that although everybody had done absolutely everything, that it was not God's will for her to stay with us. It's probably one of the most reassuring things for me. Working in healthcare for almost 20 years, I see families that have to live with the what if. What if we had known that she didn't feel well earlier? What if we had gotten to her faster? What if the teams had done everything that they could? I don't have to live with the what if. I know that if earthly measures could have kept her here, the response from the Robertson County EMS team, from NorthCrest emergency room team, and from Lifelight and Vanderbilt, we would have kept her here. It just wasn't God's will. And so myself and my family don't have to live with the what ifs. We know that everything was done. And to my dying day, I will be thankful for the staff at NorthCrest and all they did for my family.